Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Dan here. Today we're going to take a look at Dreamsequence 1.3. I'm so overdue on making a like a tutorial how-to video on this, and I don't know if I want to sit down and write out a script and talk about every feature. So I thought maybe what we would do today is just try to make a song or something approaching a song, just to show you the basics of how to navigate around, use Norns, use Grid, some kind of setup stuff that you need to do that's new to version 1.3. And I'll probably take a little bit more time to show off some of those new features. But for the most part, this is like for new users who don't want to read the rather extensive README, which is very understandable. So Dreamsequence is a script that runs on Monome Norns, and it requires a 16 by 8 or 16 by 16 grid for the interface. Something new to version 1.3 is Nota Bene support. So I have all these voices here, for instance. Let you hear some of these. And these are basically NB voices that have been installed to let me interface. Like that's Disting EX, which is in my Euro rack off screen here. We've got Just Friends. And of course, just regular MIDI out to my digital audio workstation. And even Polypark. This is the old engine in version 1.2 and earlier that I've ported. Rudiments is like a drum synth. Oh, that's a showstopper there. So in order to install those, you have to install mods. It sounds a lot more intimidating than it is. There's basically a topic on the Lines forum that has a collection of these mods, and you just need to copy a line, input it into Maiden, and it installs, and it's there for you. You do need to make sure you go into System, Mods, make sure you've turned those on, and then restart it. So assuming you've already gone through and installed your voices, let's get started here. I'm going to use E3 to navigate from the song page, that used to be called the global page, to a chord. There's 5 pages in total. But we want to start with chord. I'm going to go down using E2 to a voice and change that to something. Let's try Polypark. So these keys here in the grid view, which is selected using this button here, it's the default. These are chord degrees, 1 through 7. And then 1 octave up, 1 through 7. And this is like a little preview thing when you're stopped so that we can feel out a chord progression and try to find something to work with. Playback goes from top to bottom, and you start that with K3. We can pause it using K2, resume again with K3. And if you are paused and you hit pause again, it will stop and reset that. And you'll see a little indicator in the top right of play, pause, or stop. Actually, let's go to pattern B. Let's change it up a little bit. Okay, so pattern A and B are kind of the same, just with a slight variant. Pattern C, let's try to do like a bridge here. Okay, I think that might work. Notice, by the way, queuing up is just one button and it will dimly illuminate. The second tap is where it actually jumps over so that you can do the edits. And that only works when we're stopped, because the idea is when you're playing, we always want it to be seamless. If I press it again, it won't jump, right? Now, there's a better way of putting this together rather than like tapping these to jump through. That's what the arranger is for, amongst other things. We'll get to that towards the end, though. One of the things you may have noticed is the chord readout here on the top right. That's the active chord. It gets broadcast throughout the script, and we can do some kind of interesting things with it. So, for example, I'm going to go to the seek view. That's this bottom grid. It looks very much the same, except that there's only one seek currently. And What's different about this is instead of playing chords, we're just playing single notes. I'm going to scroll over to the seek view here. I'm going to change that voice to just friends, let's say. Now by default, this seek here is actually set up a little bit more like an arpeggiator than a sequencer. It's very fluid. We can sort of explore the space between those two things. But for now, let's kind of go ahead with this arpeggiator type setup. So what you're hearing are the notes from the active chord, that D minor. I think it's a D minor. Right, so as that active chord updates, these notes refer to different things. And let's just punch in something and see how that sounds. Little loop there. You can change this notes mapping here. So instead of triads, these will add a seventh. This is like mode-based with a diatonic transposition. A lot of stuff that can be done here. Also new in 1.3, we have swing and accent. There are also some extra features in here that you might not notice if you press and hold these down. We can, for instance, shift this pattern. You can rotate it. And we can actually just generate a totally new pattern. If you press and hold and then do K3, you'll see that gen seek basically generates a sequence. This is available for chords too, but I don't want to do that because it's going to, randomize our whole song. There's a few other little kind of related parameters that get changed when you do that generation, so just be aware that it is destructive in nature. But that's a fun way to just get some ideas going. In fact, if you hold down both of these, you'll see it says generate chords plus seek. So hold those two, K3, and you basically have like a way of shuffling the deck before you even begin composing. Now here's the really cool thing about the way Dreamsequence works. You're never actually going in here and saying, I want to play a D minor chord. You're just punching in a pattern and it interprets that pattern. That interpretation is based on the song settings here. So you go to the first page, song mode is major. I'm just going to change it and let's see what happens when we do a different mode. So that's sort of the way the magic works. Is we set some constraints on the composition using the song setting, and then we apply the chords, and they sort of constrain the notes even further. And then things like the seek and the harmonizers will just use those notes by default. Of course, we can expand that. We can break a lot of those rules and redefine them to do different things. But that's the idea in a nutshell. Okay, next up, I have turned off the seek voice, and we're going to look at these harmonizers. We have MIDI and CV options. They work pretty much the same, so I'm just going to do CV today. I will pick a voice. Let's do just friends again. And here's how this works. I have a Crow connected through USB, and I am sending in voltage, actually 0 volts currently, to Crow. And I'm going to change this trigger in to be quarter notes. So you get that kind of bass line. That is basically sampling 0 volts in Crow, and then mapping that similarly to how we do with Seek. As I increase the voltage, you hear it kind of moving up higher in pitch, but always playing a triad note based on that active chord. And I could do sevenths. And you can hear that 7th note there being picked out. So, if you're a Eurorack person, this hopefully gets you excited, because what this means is you can plug in any LFO or function generator, and it becomes a sequencer, and not just any sequencer, but it's really a chord aware sequencer. What I like to do though is kind of double up, and I take a sequencer like Mutable Instruments Marbles, which I have plugged in over here, and it's synced to the clock using Crow output 4, which is clock by default. And let's see what it sounds like now. We can also change this trigger mode back to the default. So this basically works like a sample and hold type thing. When a trigger is received at Crow input 2, it will sample that voltage, process it. And so basically I can go over to Marbles, which I'm just going to take my word for here. And as I change that, there's these kind of new sequences that emerge. Okay, let's try to bring it together here, get things meshing a little bit more, hopefully. Okay, I changed that pattern a little bit. So we've talked about chords, Seek. Let's talk about the top view. This is the arranger grid. A little bit of a mnemonic here is this is like the highest level view. You can have the whole composition being viewed here. This is sort of a little bit more granular with chords, and then the most granular is going to be Seek, typically. Okay, let's talk about making arrangements. Back in the chord view, we talked about these 4 patterns, A through D. Well, those are sort of mirrored here in the arranger view, and these top 4 rows. These correspond to patterns A through D. Again, the difference is we'll be playing left to right in this view, and we need to turn the arranger on. It's this button right here. You'll notice when the arranger is on, this little dashboard is the arranger dash that will illuminate. This button down here is one shot or looping, whether the song repeats at the end. And basically how this works is you just tap the pattern that you want, begin playing, and you'll see we're on pattern A. See how the readout here, pattern A, we're on step 4. We're going to go back to step 1. And then we're going to jump down to pattern B. There's a little diagram down here, and it'll tell you the kind of estimated song length. It's not terribly accurate, but it'll get you in the ballpark usually. Well, I'm not sure that bridge really works, but we'll just deal with it. So that's how the arrangement works. There's pagination here if you need to make this longer. You can also use this little strip here at the bottom, the sort of timeline, press and hold, and then E3 will extend a section, kind of open it up, or you can chop a section down using this here. These little lightly illuminated things just means that it's basically going to keep playing that same pattern. So it doesn't really matter if you fill those in or not. That's entirely up to you. So let's just do a little simple 1, 2, 3 pattern. Actually, I don't even like the I don't like the bridge, so we'll just do 1, 2. All right, let's take a look at events. So if you press and hold on any of these segments here, these refer to which column you're on here. Press and hold, hit K3, and we're now in the event editor, where each of these rows corresponds to one step in that chord progression. This is a chord progression A. And that means we read these events from left to right, top to bottom. So in essence, every time there's a chord change, you can fire off 16 events. And events are basically parameters or functions. Anything you can access in the menus, and even NB voices we can change. We can alter those. So I'm going to say the very first chord change and the very first event we're going to do, we're going to let's find something here. Let's do a key change, so we can really hear that. So for each of these, you can either just set a key, or you can increment, which can be positive or negative. We can do wandering, which is sort of like an increment that could be positive or negative, or we can even randomize. So I'm just going to do an increment of 2 on that key. I'm going to save that, and then K3 will bring us back to the arranger. So what should happen here is we're in C. When I begin playing, it goes up to semitones to a key of D. And then that's going to fire again when this arranger loops back around. So we could do the same thing with, like, let's say we wanted to do a tempo change. We could increment it by, let's just go a little wild here, do 10 beats per minute. I'm going to delete this other one. It was already getting a little weird. And we'll set that back to C. So we should see that tempo changing. We can also copy and paste these events, by the way. Copy, paste. So every chord change, it'll increase in tempo. All right, before we blast off here, I'm going to just wipe those out. That was copying a blank group of events and pasting over. So basically we now have no events again. All right, let's look at another use of events. I'm going to punch one in over here for the seek, and we will change something on the pattern. Maybe that pattern shift, we can have it wander plus or minus 1, and we'll limit it. Yeah, there you go. Oh, sorry. By copying and pasting these down, that way it'll happen every single chord change, and I'll paste that to the second one as well. So what we're going to see is this, this pattern here. Wiggles around. All right, let's go back and rework that bridge section, which is not really doing it for me. Okay, and back to the arranger. So we'll just pop in one last segment there, and let's see how this works. By the way, if you're in an arrangement and if you cue up a chord, that will sort of overwrite the arrangement and it will turn it off. That means also our vents won't fire. So I need to turn that back on. Okay, I turned that strum back on. Let's add a little reverb. And I think we have something approaching a song here. I don't think this is very exciting. I bet you can do better. I hope you do. And I hope you explored the script a little more thoroughly. If you have questions, check out the README. Feel free to stop by the lines topic and you can pose questions there, or here on the YouTube. That's fine too. I've had a lot of fun making this script and I hope you have a lot of fun using it. Until next time, I'm Dan.